Hello, David.
Hello, Nadira.
Now, this is a very interesting question. How might risk management be influenced by the beliefs or the culture of a society?
The influence of culture or of society is ever present. It's subtle because we don't see it in our own cultures. We are so used to our home culture that it just seems normal and natural to us, and it influences us without us realizing. I've had the privilege of working right around the world in every continent except for the Antarctic, which is much too cold. And so I've worked in 52 different countries and experienced a whole range of different cultures. And that allows me to see how different cultures are influencing the behavior of different organizations and individuals and groups in relation to risk. Because I come as an outsider, and all of these different cultures are different for me, whereas they're normal for the people who are in them. And there are lots of different factors that make up a culture of a nation or of a society. And there has been some quite interesting research on this done going back to the 1970s, in fact, and updated with time. There are two particular Dutch academics or people who have studied this area, analysts, who have developed cultural maps looking at the characteristics of cultures. One of them is a man called Hofstede, Geert Hofstede. Yes. You've perhaps heard of him. Yeah. He's written a book called Culture's Consequences, and he has a number of factors that describe characteristics of a culture which can affect our behavior. The other Dutch analyst is called Trompenaars, Frans Trompenaars. He has a similar but slightly different framework. There's a French guy called Gilles Sponny who has also looked at similar kinds of frameworks. So these exist and have existed for a while and help us to understand the characteristics of different cultures and how they can affect the way we make decisions and the way we behave. For example, how do we as a culture value hierarchy and authority? In some cultures, they're very hierarchically aware. Yes. So you have a clear set of levels of authority and you respect the authority above you. You cannot act if the person above you doesn't approve. And so we respect that level of authority and it controls our behavior. It influences us. In other organizations, they're much more level. So people are seen as more equal. There are very few layers in society or in an organization. People are more collaborative and they are prepared to take more responsibility for their own actions without seeking approval. And clearly, whether you're hierarchically focused or community focused will influence your behavior in terms of taking risk. And it's not saying that one is better or worse. These are clearly just alternatives. There's a view of time. For some people, time is very important. They have a clear view of the sequence of time. And so we would find some cultures where being on time is a key value. You start your meeting on time, you finish your meeting on time, you set deadlines and you achieve them, and timeliness is very, very important. For other people, other societies, time is less important. And you'll find whole continents where being late, it doesn't really matter as long as we get there in the end. It doesn't matter what time you start or finish, and the focus on time is quite different. You have sometimes people who think in sequence and sometimes people think in parallel about time. So there's synchronous and sequential views of time, which affect different societies. There are issues to do with uncertainty. There's one of the measures is called uncertainty avoidance, how much a society is prepared to allow uncertainty to influence them. So you have some societies where they require everything to be defined, where there are rules for everything, and it's very hard to break the rules, and other societies where it's much more free and people are allowed to make their own rules or break the rules. And so what Hofstede and Trompenaars and Sponny and others have done is to define these different characteristics for countries, for regions, for nations, and then explore how they might affect our decision making. You might have countries like some of the South American countries, when we're talking about time, how important is it to deal with risk? Mañana, we can do it tomorrow. If it happens, it happens. You know, que sera, sera. It's a kind of a very relaxed You might go to somewhere like Singapore or Germany, where you say time is very important,
time, yeah.
and they're very strict, and you identify a risk, and we have a process to deal with it, and we have to deal with it now. You might have a country like the UK, which is very focused on process, and so we make sure that we go through all the steps, we respect the process, we follow the rules with tolerance and respect, and that is true when it comes to risk management. And you might have another country, let's say like Zambia, I have some experience, where process is not so important, it's outcomes that matter. So it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. And so these are potential areas of difference in terms of risk management. So I think to be aware of your home culture is quite difficult but important. The relationship is quite subtle, the influence that it has on us as individuals. Having somebody from outside to hold up a mirror and say, did you know you look like this, is quite helpful, because then we get back to this area of awareness, and being self-aware of how our own culture is influencing us can help us to understand our own biases and preferences.
Thank you, David, very much.
It's a pleasure.